Today we're speaking with Joe Pryzbilla. He is the latest member of the Minnesota State Auctioneers Hall of Fame. And Joe, first of all, congratulations on being inducted back in late January. How did you get involved with auctioneering? I know it didn't actually come at an early age for you.
Well, actually, I went to a lot of Pete Newman's auctions, and it just amazed me how he could get everybody's attention at one time and how he could do what he did. And I sat down and talked with him one day and asked him if he thought I could maybe get into that racket and go to school and get into it. He said, "I tell you what, you go ahead and go. I'd be more than happy to get you up and rolling, get you started." So the rest is history, I guess.
And there's also a nice quote from Pete in the statement that was released. Why did he take you on?
I had to ask him about a year into it. I said, "Whatever possessed you to take me under your wing and get me rolling?" And he looked at me and he said, "You know me, I'm kind of a gambler and I like a challenge now and then, and you sure as heck looked like a challenge to me." And then he laughed.
I'm sure, and I know actually starting out of auctioneer school, it wasn't an easy start for you because you had a really bad family tragedy, but that really showed the kind of family that the State Auctioneers Association has for all of our state's auctioneers.
Yeah, that was quite a deal. When I was in auction school, they just kept saying, "Get into the MSAA and it'll be the best move you ever made." And by golly, they were right. I was home 1 week and had already signed up for the following, well, it was about 3 weeks off at that time. Had already signed up and we're going to go to the convention, and our house burnt to the ground. And luckily we got everybody out of the house, and we moved in with my mother-in-law. She was gracious enough to take us in. We just kind of were laying around moping, I guess, and we canceled our arrangements to go because we just didn't feel comfortable going. And at the last minute, 2 nights before the convention, we called back and asked if we could get reinstated, and they said, "Oh yeah, come on down." And I'll tell you that it was the best thing that could have ever happened. We got there. I only knew one person out of 300 and some people that were there. And I got a little too much smoke inhalation trying to get stuff out of the house. And I was riding the elevator when we were there going up. And there was a guy with a great big white cowboy hat and a belt buckle about the size of a Volkswagen hubcap and long black handlebar mustache, and he looked at me coughing and wheezing there, and finally he said, "Are you croaking or what's going on?" And I told him the story, and I had no idea who this guy was. And it turned out later on that evening we were doing the fun auction, raising funds for the guest speakers and all that, and all of a sudden this guy steps up to the microphone and introduced himself. "I'm the 1994 world champion, Mike Lambert from Alabama." And he holds up a bid calling tape, and he said, "I'm going to sell this tape, and I want the money to go towards Joe and Rosie's new house." The first guy bought it, and he said, "I already know how to talk. Go ahead and sell it again." And by the time they were done, they raised a heck of a pile of money towards our new house, and just the nicest group of people you could ever meet. And they just kind of took us under their wing, and I guess we're very thankful to have an auction family besides our own family.
I know when you came back to central Minnesota and started your own auction company, you actually teamed up with really a legend in the Albany area, Dean Mitchell. And of course, he is the son of central Minnesota radio legend Cliff Mitchell. How did you get involved with him, and then how has the company changed over the years?
Actually, Dean's dad, Cliff, and Pete Newman were partners at one time and sold a million cattle, I think they did, together. And once Pete got to be in his later years, he wanted to slow down a little bit, and we had some pretty good size auctions booked at that time. And he told me to give Dean Mitchell a call because he always went along when Cliff and Pete were selling just to do the dirty work. Dean was an auctioneer already at 18 years of age. After about 10 years working with Pete is when Dean started helping us here and there, and by golly, I couldn't have found a greater partner. I mean, he is what I don't think of, he does. It's sometimes kind of a comedy show when when it needs to be to get their attention, so they ain't standing in the crowd talking. So the business has changed somewhat. We do our own clerking and stuff now, where Pete and Cliff just had area banks do all their clerking. And it got to the point here 6-7 years ago where our wives, and we had a good staff that were willing to try clerking it themselves, and that way we get just a little quicker settlement for them, and it's working out very good.
And you mentioned the fundraising for helping out with when the house burnt down, but that I think would also probably lead into the fact that you do a lot of charity auction work when it comes to Holy Trinity School and some of the other local churches around central Minnesota. How did you get involved with that?
I guess I was asked to do a benefit auction for a guy that he had a brain tumor, and it was just coincidence. He was our janitor in Buckman for the school and the church, and they were tearing the school down at that time. And I went and dug through the rubble, and I got a little pile of bricks. And I thought, perfect opportunity to sell something with a little memory for the area. And I was a little shocked myself. I guess I announced that I put a $100 bill on top of the brick, and I said, folks, I know that stuff's selling so high tonight. If you wanted to give something but you couldn't buy it because it went too high, now would be a time to come and lay a little money on top of the brick. Well, they just come from every directions to put money on top of the brick, and then I sold it, and it went for $10,000. And the fella that bought it took it back to his table and laid all the money off and put a $100 bill back on it and brought it up, and he said, my wife's just like one of the three little pigs. She wants a wooden house, not a brick house. And we sold it again for $3,500 again. So that brick brought $13,500, and I guess after that, benefit auctions, if there's one around, they usually call, and it's been working out very good, and we're just happy as a lark to do it.
And well, that definitely attests to your kind of humor that I know that you always do when it comes to the auction. And I'm familiar with the many times that you've done the auction for the County Snowmobile Association. Is the humor that you have, is that what kind of keeps you going when times get dark?
Well, it sure makes a difference. I'll tell you, if you let the bad things get the best of you, it does put you down in the dumps. And when I was taking a round of radiation down there in Rochester, I walked in the radiation room, and it was kind of like walking into a morgue. And when I got done 5 weeks later, one by one, every lady behind the counter, the receptionist, come and give me a hug and said, please come back again. You really liven this joint up. But I think it's because I talk about 3 decibels too loud. Everybody in there could hear me talking. But I'd usually look around for someone with a Pioneer jacket or a decal hat, or because I knew we'd have something in common.
You're still auctioneering, but also it's become a family affair. Your son Corey has gotten involved in the business now.
Yeah, actually, Corey went to Mason City when he was 15 years old. He turned 16 while he was there and took the course, and boy, they really turned him into a good little auctioneer. He come home, he could talk better than me, but I corrected that now. But he's actually not running with us right now. If I get a big one, he'll fly home, but otherwise he's